Check. Sweet. Let's give it up for our worship team real quick as you're sitting down. Man, that's so awesome. I love that. That was a great, thank you, Pastor Bradley. And the team is so good to see you guys this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Special shout out to Ocon and those watching on the live stream. Welcome today. If we have not met, my name is Blake. I'm the youth ministries pastor, and so usually I'm speaking to the teens, but today they're letting me speak to the adults, so I'm so excited to get to share what God has put on my heart with you guys this morning. We're in our Proverbs series, in the kind of the middle of it right now, and so there's been some great messages from our staff talking about different topics. I want to encourage you, if you've missed a week, you've been on vacation or something, we do have those on our podcast, and so that's a great way to keep up to date with our sermons and what's going on here. So I want to encourage you, go and give those a listen. So today we're going to be in Proverbs. Our key verse today is Proverbs 19:17, and what our goal today is going to be is to my hope is to see how we can help those in need and kind of less to declutter it or to make it less complicated than we might have perceived. So before we jump in, I want to share with you guys my first big boy job. A lot of you guys know I worked at City on a Hill before coming here, and so I just want to share about a little experience I had there. But so in case you don't know what City on a Hill is, it's a nonprofit ministry in inner city Milwaukee. They do a lot with youth and health, and so I was so excited when I first got to get that job. I was like, I'm going to be in ministry, I'm going to be in the nonprofit sector, and so for that to happen, I was like, okay, I got to work on my mindset here, right? Like, it's my first big boy job, it's in a nonprofit, so I have to become this charitable Blake, right? Like, I wasn't super charitable to begin with, but now I'm at a nonprofit. I don't want to be a hypocrite, so I'm going to become like the super giving, super nice person. That was my mindset. And so going in, first day of work, who are my planners in the room? Like, who likes to plan stuff out? Who likes to be early for stuff? Who is always late for stuff? People walking in right now, like, hello. I'm usually late, so I was like, okay, got to make a good first impression. I'm going to be early to this thing. Okay, I was like, I'm going to show up, get there early, make sure my deodorant's good, make sure my breath smells good. It's going to be good. So I get there about an hour early before our doors even open. I don't know how this process works. I thought someone would be there. Turns out no one's there. Okay, so I'm there an hour early. I text my boss. I'm like, hey, I'm here. She's like, well, I'm not, so just chill, right? Like, why are you here an hour early? And it was the first day. I want to make a good impression. So I'm like, oh, I got some time. And in case you don't know this about me, I have this weird fear that my breath smells bad, like all the time. So I'm like, you know what would be good? If I went and I got some gum. Okay, so I'm like, well, I don't really know the gas stations around here, so I just Google it, type into my maps real quick, find a close gas station, jump on over there, and I'm buying some gum and some coffee. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. And as I'm walking out of the store, there's a guy sitting there, and he looks at me and asks me for some money. And so you remember, I'm trying to be this more charitable person. I'm trying to reinvent myself as nonprofit Blake, right? Like, be like, this is what I do for my living. So here's so I was like, yeah, I can help you. Luckily, I had cash on me. I'm not a big cash person at all. If you want to give me cash, I love it. Like, I'll take the cash you give me. My dad says that's always the best gift that you can receive is cash. So feel free to bless me with that today. But I had some cash on me, so I was like, you know what? I got to practice what I preach here. So I reach in, I pull a couple bucks out. I'm like, yeah, man, here, go get some coffee. It's great. Said bye to him, and I was like feeling so good, right? That feeling when you help somebody, you got all these warm butterflies. Like, I'm living it out. I'm doing it. I'm nonprofit Blake. It's going to be awesome. And I get to work, and they're doing the whole orientation stuff. Luckily, my breath is smelling good because we're sitting close, going over the rules of City on a Hill. And they're talking about, kind of their policies, their procedures for stuff. And we're talking through stuff and, signing all the paperwork and whatever. And they say, all right, we want to tell you a couple of our bigger policies. And I'm like, all right, cool. Teach me, right? Like, I'm ready to learn. And they're like, okay, so number one, our biggest thing, we never give money to people, okay? And I'm just like, well, yeah, duh. Like, who would do that, right? Like, not me. And they're like, do you get it? And I'm like, yeah, totally, I get it. But I think for a lot of us in here, we have this idea of, we want to help those in need. We want to help people around us, but maybe we don't necessarily know how to do it. Maybe you were like me and you're like, you gave a couple bucks and you felt so good about yourself, and really you don't know what that couple bucks went for. You don't know how that's going to make a lasting impact. But today I just want to say a couple of things to you guys about what our role is as Christians to those in need. Our role as a Christian community, as a Christian body, to those who need something. And this is not a message of guilt today at all. I'm not trying to say, guys, we have sucked at this, we've missed the mark on this. That is not my heart behind this whatsoever. My heart behind this is just awareness. It's to talk about what God's love compels us to do. That because of who we serve, we must help the poor. And so today, like I said, our key verse is going to be found in Proverbs 19:17. It says this: whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done. Whenever we do something for the poor, it's saying we directly lend to the Lord in that area. And when you're looking at this passage, whenever you lend something to somebody, it means you're going to get that back, right? And so if we think about this in some practical standpoints here, if we're lending to God, that means God is going to repay us. And like we've said this whole series in Proverbs, this is not like a law, this is not a guarantee, this is kind of just a general rule of thumb that's going on in Proverbs. But if we think about it, God probably has some pretty good interest rates, right? If he's gonna pay us back, it's probably gonna be pretty good. So if we think about that, what is our role in helping the poor, and how does that look like? This is such a prevalent thing for us today because just in Waukesha alone, there's over 7,500 people living below the poverty line. And that poverty line looks different depending on how many people are in your family, but for a family of 4, that means as a total household income, that is less than $25,000. 7,500 people, and that's not just adults, that's kids as well. That there's many kids in our direct city. I'm sure in Oconomowoc and on the live stream, wherever you are, there's people that need something from us around us. And so this is a need that we have to talk about today. Not in a way of, oh man, we have totally blown it, but in a way of how can we help? And so there's over 35 verses in Proverbs. We're going to look at a few of those today about what our call is as Christians to the poor. And like I said, I'm a youth pastor, and so I really only have 2 points for us today. Amen. It's going to be pretty succinct because I got to keep the attention span. I'm looking at the whole youth row right here. I'm watching you, okay? Make me proud. But just 2 points for us today. And so point number 1 comes from Proverbs 22:2. It says, rich and poor have this in common: the Lord is maker of them all. I think something so important that we have to really get in our heads is we have to view people as God's children. That once we look at somebody and we say, you are a child of God, that you bear the image of God because he created you, it helps us to look at people differently and to treat people differently. Something I think it does is helps us to think of people differently. A lot of times we're walking by or we hear a story about someone in need. Maybe our first reaction is to have a negative assumption about them. To say, well, what did they do to end up there? Why is it their fault? That might be our first questions we ask instead of, well, how can I help? How can I step into this situation and present the love of God? See, we have this great commonality between all of us in this room. We have something in common. You're looking at people that might annoy you like, I have nothing in common with that person. You do, I promise. It's the Lord is maker of us all. And just some really practical life advice. When you're trying to become friends with somebody or trying to get your point heard, it's really important to find that commonality between you. I learned that the hard way when I started youth ministry here, and a lot of you guys know I'm very passionate about baseball, right? I love my Cardinals, right, Pastor Todd? We love our Cardinals, and we love baseball, and I coach it now, and I got to play it, and it was just a blast. It's a part of who I am. I love baseball. I owe a lot to baseball, right? I'm losing some of you right now. I can see it in your eyes the more I talk about baseball. And I had to realize when I would make those analogies to my youth, their eyes would just glaze over. They'd be like, we don't care about baseball, Pastor Blake. Stop talking about it. I had to find a common ground between them to be able to relate, to be able to talk, to be able to get my points across. And something we have to do as Christians is find that commonality. And I'm telling you what it is. It's that the Lord is creator of us all. So we have this great commonality, this great equalizer among us. And something that this also does for us, is that it kind of levels the playing field completely. It not just lets us see other people as God's creation, it lets us see us for who we are. Something I got to share on Wednesday with our Celebrate Recovery team was my testimony. And in my testimony, I talk about how I grew up as a church kid and how I grew up as a pastor's kid, and I would sit in the seats and I would instead of worshiping, I would look around at who was worshiping. And I would get to be this judge of people. That was what I was. I was this self-righteous person that would get to judge people and say if they were actually Christian or not. And looking at this, that's not what the heart is at all. That we have this great commonality between us that levels the playing field. It helps us put into perspective who we are, not just who other people are as well. That life is not this comparison game where we look at other people and we say, well, I'm doing better than you, or I might be a little bit smarter than you, or I might be doing whatever. It's not this comparison. But because of our Maker, we have to view people as God's children. And I understand that we might have some things that happen in our life that let us have these assumptions about these people that are in need, people that are poor. For myself, we were driving home from a family road trip, coming back from the beach. It was an awesome vacation, and we are in our Durango, and I'm the youngest, right? So you've talked about I'm the baby, I'm the favorite, but they still made me sit in that third row that's super tiny, right? So I'm in the back, and we're at this gas station, and my mom's in the passenger seat. I don't know where my dad is, probably inside getting candy or something, right? And so this guy comes up to our car, knocks on the window, and I'm chilling in the back, just what's going on right here? And my mom rolls down the window, and he's like, hey, could you spare some change for me? And I'm looking at our change, and we got a lot of it, right? And I'm like, this is my snack money. Please do not give him all my snack money. I can buy some sweet candy with that. I get a slushie. It's going to be good. But my mom is like, yeah, sure, we can help you. So she grabs all of our change. I'm talking, she grabs the quarters, she grabs the dimes, all this shiny stuff. And I'm sitting in the back just Mom, what are you doing, right? Why are you giving this away? And it was really cool to see my mom have a heart for someone that needed something. She's a very compassionate, loving woman. I love my mom, but I was mad she was giving my snack money away. At the same time, I'm like, oh, cool, she's setting this positive example, right? So he's super thankful. He takes the change, leaves. I don't know what's going on. I just go back to playing on my Game Boy, right? So I'm just chilling. A couple minutes later, another guy walks up to our car. Two guys knock on the window, and it's these police officers. And I'm like, is my mom getting arrested? What's happening right now? And she rolls down the window. I'm more attentive now. I'm listening. And she's like, hello, ma'am. Did you happen to give money to this gentleman? He looks like this. And my mom was like, yeah, I did. We're still kind of happy about it. Have the warm butterflies. And they're like, well, it turns out he's actually the town drunk. So if you could just make sure you don't give him any more money, that would be great. And I'm like, I knew I should have got those snacks, Mom. Come on, what are you doing? But a lot of times, maybe you're in here today and you're like, man, I've tried to help somebody. I've tried to be that person to show God's love, and I've gotten burned. Maybe your heart has been in the complete right place before, and you've tried to do something good, but it didn't turn out good. And I want to encourage you today, don't let that stop you from continuing to help. Maybe you saw a YouTube video of someone asking for money, then they hop in their BMW, or maybe you saw someone exploiting that before. I want to share with you that's such minority of people in that situation. That's not every single person, and we have to be careful as Christians to not make those assumptions about people. Some of the most joyous and thankful people I ever met was at City on a Hill. I owe a lot of my growing up to City on a Hill, a lot of my understanding of poverty and of wealth to City on a Hill. Because we have these health outreaches where hundreds of people, they come in, they receive different services as far as medical, food, clothing. We try to help in a lot of different ways on those days. And it's amazing to see these people come in with just the biggest smiles. They're just so thankful, they're so happy. And the biggest thing I was thanked for, it wasn't, oh, thank you so much for this resource. Thank you so much for letting us go see the doctor, for a lawyer. It was, thank you for taking time to talk to me. Thank you for taking time just to get to know me, to hear what's going on. And so today, I don't want us to overcomplicate this idea of helping somebody in need. I don't want us to feel like we have to jump through these hoops and rings and we have to do X, Y, and Z, because it's much more simple than that. It's just showing the love of God to somebody who bears the image of God. It's understanding that we are all created by the same maker and helping that person. Matthew 25:40 says this. The king will reply, this is Jesus talking to his disciples. He's talking about when he comes back. He said, the king will reply, truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So this is repeated again. We already talked about it in Proverbs 19:17, that when we do things for the poor, we are directly helping God. We're directly helping Jesus. And so that love that we have for Jesus, that love that's inside of us that he's given to us, calls us to action. Calls us to view people as he does. Calls us to help people like we're helping Jesus. We have to view people as people instead of their problems. That when we see somebody, that each and every one of us has different problems in this room today. Some of them might be more outward than others, right? But we still have to view people for who they are, not for the problems that they're facing. Point number 2 is we have to proactively help those who need it. That we should be on the lookout for this thing, that it's not just, only when people come and ask me for help am I going to help them. We have to proactively look for that. Proverbs 21:13 says this, whoever shuts their ears to the cry of the poor will also cry out and not be answered. That if we are living life with our blinders on and we're just kind of walking around saying, well, I'm taking care of my stuff, they should be taking care of their stuff, that's their responsibility, we're missing it today. That if we're shutting our ears when we hear about tragedy happening, if we shut our ears to when people are asking us for help, we're missing it today. And I want to reiterate, this is not a call of guilt. This is not a call of like, man, we have missed it. But this is a call of awareness and a call of action. A call of what Christ's love can do in us and what we can do for our community. What we can do for the people that we interact with. There's actually over 2,000 verses in the Bible that talk about poverty and justice. So I just want to look at a few real quickly. Proverbs 31:8-9 says this. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and of the needy. Proverbs 22:22-23 says this. Do not exploit the poor because they are poor. And do not crush the needy in court, for the Lord will take up their case and will exact life for life. That the Lord is going to be the one that defends people. We have to be careful how we view those people. We have to be careful if we're proactively helping people in need today. Psalm 140:12 says this, I know that the Lord secures justice for the poor and upholds the cause of the needy. Isaiah 1:17 says this, learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, and plead the case of the widow. See, we are called to do something. We have to be careful to just be content with how our life is going. And we have to be careful to be content with everything that's going on around us. That it's so easy for us to put up those blinders, to just kind of get out of our element. I think it's easy for us to become numb to what's going on around us too. That I was just in Chicago. How many people are like my Chicago fans in here? Anybody like Chicago? Good. I hate it too. I'm glad we're on the same page. I dislike Chicago very much, not just because of their sports teams. I dislike it because of how much it costs for parking, how much everything costs. I hate the traffic. Why do I have to pay to drive on the road? I don't like tolls, okay? I dislike Chicago. But it's easy to tell who's a Chicago person and who's not, right? When you're walking on the streets. For those who've been in Chicago, you know there's a lot of people on the streets performing. Maybe they have a little hat out, they're asking for some money. They're doing something that's pretty crazy, right? I was just there, we're walking down the street, we're trying to get to a pizza place, and this guy is dressed up as Spider-Man. He's playing his saxophone, and like people are like, oh, this is awesome. They're freaking out, right? But your typical Chicago person, what do? They just put their head down, they just keep on walking. They got their headphones in, they're like not checking into this. They're like, whatever, this is totally normal. But for everybody else, all the tourists, they have their phones out, they're like, oh, Aunt Sharon's not gonna believe this. This is crazy, right? Like, They're like, oh, this is so unique. But it's easy for us to become numb to people in need. It's easy for us to look at those people and just walk by going, oh, whatever, this is usual. This is typical. Someone will take care of it. Someone will step up. Somebody will get help. Even if they don't, they'll be okay. It's easy for us to become numb to those things, and so we have to guard against it. I want to put wealth into perspective for us this morning, just really quickly. There's a website called theglobalrichlist.com. I encourage you to go check it out. It's a cool website. It lets you see how you rank in the world. If you're like, oh, I want to know what percentage I am, it'll tell you, like, pretty down to the, I think, person is what it does. So you can type in either your income or like your net worth to figure out where you rank in the world. And so I was messing around with it, just typing in some numbers, seeing where I ranked in the world, seeing kind of what people's rankings would be for certain numbers. And so I typed in $32,400 for a household. $30,400 is our household income. That puts you in the top 1% of income earners in the world. That number. And I thought like I was poor, right? I'm a lowly youth pastor. My wife's in med school right now. Like, we are the poorest of poor. And I typed this number in, and it's just like a humbling, oh man. And what it made me realize is that each time the Bible talks about the wealthy, it's talking about me. That the Bible doesn't say, well, if you're in America, then this is the wealthy standpoint, but if you're in this country, this is the wealthy standpoint. When the Bible talks about the wealthy, it's most likely talking about each and every one of us in this room. And so we might be sitting here today thinking like, well, Bill Gates will give a bunch of money to charity, and like Mark Zuckerberg, he seems like a generous guy, right? He'll help people out. Or like, think of the richest person you think of, and we'd be like, yeah, of course they're rich. They need to be doing more. But I want to challenge you today. When the Bible talks about wealth, it's talking about us. That call is to us. And we have to do something. We have to proactively help. What are we doing for Jesus today? What are we doing for Jesus? Are we looking at people as Jesus would look at them? Or have we become numb to the world? Are our lives framed in a way where we interact with people from a different socioeconomic level than us? Like I said, it's so easy to just kind of go about our daily lives and to never interact with people in need. It's something that's super easy for us to do. We actually do a poverty simulation at Sea on a Hill where we take the students and we make them wear like kind of disjointed clothes, and we send them out into the streets, and they haven't eaten in like a day, right? They've eaten like ramen noodles or something. And we ask them, what did you notice? What did you notice? They said, I noticed the smells of food. I noticed other people's shoes. I noticed other people's clothes. I noticed how people didn't want to look at me. And for us to put ourselves in the shoes of people that are in need, you realize that they can't really avoid wealth. They can't really avoid the things in life that they might want or desire. But for a lot of us in this room today, it's easy for us to kind of just ignore that whole section of life and to go about our daily life normally. But we have to be proactively looking for those who need it. We have to be careful not to shut our eyes or ears to the poor. Something we have to talk about too is motivation behind it. Why should I help somebody? Maybe you're trying to take care of your family and you're like, we're just doing good enough right now. Everything's good. I'm trying to save up for that nice house on the lake. Amen. Like, that'd be sweet. But we have to be careful about our motivation to help. If our motivation is out of guilt this morning, like I've already said, I pray that that's not what you're hearing today. I pray that that's not what you're going to take away today, is that, oh, I feel so guilty. But it really should be out of love today. In 1 Corinthians 13:3 says this, if I were to be so generous as to give away everything I own to feed the poor and offer my body to be burned as a martyr, without the pure motive of love, I will gain nothing. It's not about doing it to get credit, to get those warm feelings in your stomach. Yeah, it's awesome to help somebody out and you feel great about it, but if our motivation is to be viewed as this amazing person, we're missing the mark. If our motivation is to get a bunch of likes on Instagram, that's not it. It's great that we do post that and we set that example for other people. We do set that as this is what Christians should be doing. Those are awesome things. I don't want to say never post about this stuff. Never share what's going on. That's so great. But if our motivation is that alone, that's not pure. Our motivation should be out of the love that Christ has showed for us. I know what gets the most likes on my Instagram, right? It's like when I post about my mama and when I post about Olivia. So like those are the two things with the women in my life. When I post about them, that's when the likes go up. But if I were constantly posting about them, saying, hey, look at these two, look how awesome they are, it's going to lose its draw. It's going to lose its power. We have to be careful what our motivation is. Our actions need to be proactive instead of reactive. I think a great opportunity that you got to hear about today already is Pack the Back. I am so excited for Pack the Back. It is going to be an awesome event. We're going to give out 500 backpacks to the Waukesha area. Like, that's incredible. And you guys have already helped with that with your school supplies, so thank you so much for already playing a part. A lot of you guys are going to be volunteering that day, and that's awesome. It's going to be an incredible event where we get to rub shoulders with people that might look a little bit different than us, might smell a little bit different than us. We get to meet a physical need in this community through Pack the Back. And I want to encourage you, if you are feeling that today, we're going to take up a Kingdom Builders offering later for Pack the Back. And so that's a way that you can proactively help those in need. If you want to come and serve at that event, we might still have room on some service teams. I know setup and teardown, like everyone loves to do setup and teardown, so we might be full. No, I'm just kidding. You can always come and help set up and tear down for those events. But I want to challenge you, be there that day just to sit and to talk with somebody. Be there that day to smile at somebody. Be there that day to just listen. Because that's going to be so much more helpful than throwing money at it and never paying attention to it. That's going to make a difference in someone's lives much more than just giving them $5. And as Christians, we need to be neighboring those people. I know that's been our theme word for the year. Talking about how can we neighbor better? How can we do the greatest commandment that Jesus said better? And so today, helping it isn't just throwing money at it and going, I hope it goes away. I hope this helps. I hope this solves it. Helping is going by and standing by somebody. Helping is listening to them. Helping is neighboring, especially the people that no one else wants to neighbor. So this morning, I want to encourage you to go neighbor somebody this morning. How many times have we felt guilty walking by somebody that might be homeless or might be asking us for money, and instead of even looking at them, we just kind of put our head down and just be like, I hope they don't talk to me. I hope they don't talk to me. Please don't look at me. Don't do this. I feel like that's a pretty common feeling for a lot of us in this room. And I don't want you to feel guilt out of this moment at all, but I just want us to simplify how we can help. For me, like I said, I'm not a big cash person. I don't always have cash on me, right? But what do we have to offer as Christians? What do we have to offer as believers today, as human beings today? How much a difference can we make just by sitting and talking with somebody, by simply smiling at them, by looking them in the eyes, by treating them like a human being? Are our actions indications of how Christ views the poor or how the world views the poor? I think that's a question we have to ask ourselves today. So just some really practical takeaways for us this morning, because this is a big topic. There's a lot we could talk about with how we should treat the poor. There's a lot we could talk about when we talk about those in need. And so today I just want to give you some really practical application for this. First thing is we have to help meet physical needs before they might listen spiritually. That's why we're doing Pack the Back. That's why our church has a compassion fund for people to come in that are in need of something. And we're able to assist and help those. That's why people give to that fund. That's why we're able to give students scholarships to camp. Is because we know we have to meet physical needs before they might be open to their spiritual need. But really practical takeaways we can go with today is, number one, just treat people like human beings. That when you look at somebody, you don't look at them as this person that's lower than you. You don't look at them for their problem, but simply looking at someone as another human being, doing life together with them. That most people in need, they don't need somebody to just come in and put whatever their need is and then go away. They need someone to come in and just be in a relationship with them, to offer the hope of Christ with them, to share Christ's love with them. Second thing you can do, smile. Just smile at somebody. Even if you got a janky smile, that's okay. They'll love it, right? That's all right. One of the greatest things that City on the Hill has been complimented on, especially by our volunteers. I did all the volunteer coordination, so I would get to coach up the volunteers, and I'd tell them all, smile, smile, smile. You don't know how big a difference it is to smile at somebody that never gets smiled at, that might be lonely or depressed, that has no hope. What a smile can do in that situation when they feel alone. And so today, smile. And that's like such a cliche, cheesy thing to say, right? But I promise you it makes a world of difference in somebody's life, because it's saying you notice them, you recognize them, and you're happy to see them. And for a lot of people that are in need, they don't feel that way about themselves. We have to be the ones that say, it's great to see you. Something really cool you can do with your kids or with your family is create these blessing bags. So what they are is just like a gallon-sized bag. You put some like socks in it, you put a water bottle in it, granola bar, some soap, whatever you want to stuff in there, a little letter saying we're praying for you. And if you don't feel comfortable giving out cash, which I don't think we would recommend, maybe you have gift cards you want to give out, but that blessing bag can be in your trunk of your car, in the back seat of your car. That way when you're driving somewhere, you can grab that and you can give that to somebody and say, hey, we're praying for you. Here's something that is a direct resource that could help you. And it's a great activity to get your kids involved in, to start conversation about what our role is as Christians to those who need help. What our role is as Christians to those less fortunate than ourselves. The fourth thing, volunteer somewhere. I already talked about Pack the Back and how that's going to be an amazing event and opportunity for us to go serve our community. But there's a lot of things going on in Waukesha. June 1st, we had a serve day. That was a great first serve day where we got to be part of the Waukesha community, the Economowoc community, and help out those who needed help. And that wasn't just June 1st. That opportunity is still there today. That you can go plug in somewhere, that you can go and learn about someone suffering. You can go learn about someone that might be less fortunate than yourself. And I'm not saying that this whole room is full of people that are just like doing 100% and doing so well. I understand there's probably people in here that are saying, but Pastor Blake, I have a need. That I need help. And I want to encourage us as a church body, reach out to those people. Help those people. These are people around us that desperately need not just resources, they might need Jesus. There's something cool that we get to talk about that's kind of a direct correlation between this physical need that a lot of people have, but there's a spiritual need that each and every one of us in this room has today. That before Jesus Christ came, we were all poor. We were all broke. We all had no hope. Spiritually, there was not a shot for us until God sent his son. God from the highest place sent Jesus Christ to come die on a cross for each and every one of us today. That we get to see this comparison of what we were before Christ to what we are now. That while we were orphaned, God was up there expressing his love for us by sending his son. So today, I just want to give that opportunity with you guys. If you have not accepted Jesus Christ, if you have not been welcomed into his family yet, maybe you've been hesitant to do it because you think you're good enough on your own. Maybe you've been saying, my life is pretty fine. I kind of have everything in order. Do I really need Jesus? I want to tell you today, yes, you do. That each and every one of us have this spiritual need and this spiritual desire to know him. We may not know that's what that desire is, but it is. That we have to accept Christ in order to find this gift of life, in order to be spiritually rich in abundance with him today. And so today you might be sitting here thinking, well, financially, physically, I'm pretty well off. Spiritually, I just know something is missing. You might be sitting here today going, man, I remember what I used to be like before I accepted Jesus, and now I feel that spiritual richness. I feel that spiritual love that comes from Jesus alone. And that's so awesome. But today, if you're in here, you're saying, I just haven't accepted that yet. I want to give us an opportunity to accept Jesus this morning. So if you all could just bow your heads with me today. Starting from my right and your left. If that's you today, if you're saying, I'm tired of being an orphan. I'm tired of being spiritually broke. I want to accept Jesus today as my Savior. I want to accept Jesus as my hope today. If that's you, starting from my right, if you could just lift up your hand to the middle aisles now. Anybody in the middle aisles? It's awesome. And to the left. That's so awesome. Let's pray a prayer together. If everyone could just join in, that would be amazing. Heavenly Father, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and the Savior of the world. And today I make Jesus Lord of my life. I believe he died so that I could be forgiven. I believe he rose again to give me life. So I receive this new life. This is my new beginning. Amen.